I've made it to Buenos Aires, Argentina. New city, new country, new continent for me. And my goal here is to ride as many trains as I possibly can. In today's video, I challenge myself to ride every suburban rail line in Buenos Aires. This is part 1, and we start the moment I arrive. Buenos dias from Buenos Aires. That's right, I am in Argentina. New country for me. In fact, new continent for me. I've never even been to South America. We're here to see the sights, ride the trains. So the first thing I had to do was get a Suburban card. With this thing, you can ride all the trains, all the buses, everything. Now, luckily, right as you leave the airport, there's a open 25 hours store. It's kind of like a candy kiosk, and they sell them. So I bought one for 1,500 pesos and then added some money on there. Now we gotta follow signs towards the colectivos. We're gonna ride the bus. Buses in Buenos Aires are called colectivos, and they might be one of the things that I found most surprising about being here. But I'm gonna make a whole dedicated video about them in the future. So for now, let's walk over to the airport bus station and get on line 8. Line 8 is the main bus that you will take if you're traveling from Ezeiza Airport to central Buenos Aires. Conveniently, it is also taking me to the suburb of Tapiales. So one of my goals for this trip is to ride all of the different commuter rail lines in Buenos Aires. Now there are several. I'm not gonna ride the whole line of each line because I don't have enough time for that, but I wanna get at least a representative section of each line. Buenos Aires' suburban train system is absolutely massive. At almost 900 kilometers long, it is the second largest system in the Americas after New York. Now the system is made up of 8 different lines. I say lines, but in reality most of these are little systems with several different branches. The lines are very diverse. These are electric, these are diesel. These are narrow gauge, these are standard gauge, and these are broad gauge. And they're also operated by 3 different companies. There's lots to see. And like I said, I won't be riding every mile of every line, but I do want to ride a significant enough section that you get a good sense of what the line is like, at least closer to the city. Anyway, we are on the line 8 bus, taking the highway out of the airport and towards the city. I got on an express service, so we did run faster than a lot of the locals would. Although at several points we did get off the highway to serve neighborhoods and pick people up, and there usually was a little bit of congestion and slowdown there. Now to ride the bus, I paid with my Suburban card, the one I just got at the airport, and I'll also be using this to pay for all the trains in today's video and future videos. So I am walking through this area called Tapiales. I got off the bus. It's about a 15-minute walk to the train. Very interesting area. Lots of grocery stores, lots of car garages, so many buses. Tapiales is a suburban community with a population of around 15,000. I will be splitting my goal of riding all the suburban lines into 4 different days and 4 different videos. Today, we have taken the bus here to Tapiales. Near the central square, you'll find the Tapiales train station, where we are riding the Belgrano Sur Line into the city. After then walking to the H line of the subway, we will take that to Once station, where we will transfer to the second suburban line, the Sarmiento line. We better hurry. Our train, a diesel multiple unit built by CNR in China in 2015, is already pulling into the station. It's the end of the morning rush hour, but the train is still pretty packed. We are on a Belgrano Sur Line train headed into Buenos Aires, with final destination, Dr. Antonio Sainz. The Belgrano Sur Line, or Belgrano South, is an unelectrified suburban line that runs on meter gauge tracks. That means that the rails here are only 1,000 millimeters apart, much narrower than most tracks around the world, and narrower than most lines here in Buenos Aires. This is the least used of all the Buenos Aires suburban lines, moving about 11 million passengers a year. All the lines in BA are named after the much larger network that they form a part of. In the case of the Belgrano Sur and the Belgrano Norte line, which we will ride in a different video, both of these use the General Manuel Belgrano Railway. This massive meter gauge network is the longest railway system in Argentina. It was formed in 1948 when several private companies were nationalized into one national meter gauge system. Manuel Belgrano was a military leader and a politician who is credited with designing the Argentinian flag. You will notice most of the railways here are named after national heroes, but the Belgrano Sur Line in Buenos Aires uses one of the many branches of this larger network. The 1990s and early 2000s were a tumultuous time for this line, as operations kept switching between private companies and the national government. But since 2015, the state-owned agency Trenes Argentinos has been operating this service, as well as all but two of the other suburban train services. This line has seen quite some improvements since the 2010s. These new Chinese trains were introduced, although I've heard not everyone is a fan of them. The stations were rebuilt and modernized, the tracks replaced, and the service has been extended to towns previously not served. There used to be another branch as well, but this was closed permanently in 2017 after a derailment. Man, these trains are so slow. So I've gotten off 2 stops before the last stop just to kind of get some footage, but also this is where you can transfer to the pre-metro. In about 15 minutes, the next train should show up, and we'll take that all the way into Buenos Aires. Now, I mentioned that the trains were slow, but I have to say my first impressions of riding the train in Argentina were pretty good. I mean, it was rush hour. That was kind of cool to experience, but people were very courteous, I noticed. Like, every time an older person got on the train, people gave up their seat. And it was very quiet on board, except for when the merchants wearing the Trenes Argentinos jackets would walk through the train kind of chanting, selling chocolates or pastries. I think they were making good money doing that. I did notice later during my trip when I would ride the train that people often had their phones playing music or videos very loud. I guess that's just something that happens in every country, unfortunately. So as you can see, the tracks here are very narrow. They're actually meter gauge, and that's pretty interesting considering how a lot of these lines here in Buenos Aires and in Argentina use very broad gauge, even broader than standard. But Belgrano Sur and Belgrano Norte are meter gauge. Now I just have to wait for the next train to show up. Well, that wait was about 10 minutes longer than I thought, but here comes the train. Alright, it's 2 more stops until we reach the final station, Dr. Antonio Sainz. This shattered door window is a reminder of one of the unfortunate realities of the Argentinian railways, which is that people like to throw rocks at trains. I thought that these must be kids, but a friend of mine in the city showed me a video that they took of a grown adult doing this. Yikes. Dr. Sainz might seem like a strange place for the line to end. Unlike all the other terminals in Buenos Aires, it doesn't really connect to the subway. I'm gonna have to walk around 10 minutes to make my transfer. Well, until 2018, trains terminated at the Buenos Aires station, 1 stop beyond Sainz. Now, the government is building an elevated track alignment and extending the line to serve the massive Plaza Constitución station, served by the Roca Suburban Line and Line C of the subway. This will be a huge improvement not only for safety, but also connectivity. I'm excited to see it be completed. All right, Belgrano Sur, end of the line. For many years now, trains have terminated at Dr. Antonio Sainz. I got a sandwich from a guy selling them downstairs because I hadn't eaten anything since plane dinner. And honestly, I had salami and cheese on it. I'm a Dutch guy. More than one topping is luxury for us. Now I'm just walking a few blocks to get to the Subte, the subway, to then transfer to the next commuter rail line. But I want to talk about this one really quick. You know, I was reasonably impressed. Yes, the trains were slow, but they were decently frequent. Trains themselves, they had bike racks, wide doors, and then the stations were modern. Wheelchair ramps or elevators, good signage, overall very pleasant experience.
And now we've made it to the southern terminus of the H line of the Buenos Aires Subte.
Here we go, my very first ride on the Buenos Aires subway.
The Subterráneo, commonly shortened as the Subte, is one of the oldest subway systems in the world, with the first line having opened in 1913. Despite being just 56 kilometers, or 35 miles long, the Subte has 90 stations, serves 500,000 passengers a day, and 200 million every year. There are 6 lines, A, B, C, D, E, and H. I will have separate videos about lines A and B coming in the future, including one where I talk about the super cool old Japanese trains on line B, one of the main reasons that I came here in the first place. But right now we're riding line H. This is the newest line on the system, with the first section opening in 2007, and the most recent extension in 2018. Fun fact, the tracks on all the other lines are connected, either to each other or to a suburban line. But the line H tracks are completely isolated from the rest. So to add or take trains from the line, they have to dig up the street above it and use cranes. Anyway, we've made it to Once station, where we will transfer to our next suburban line, the Sarmiento line.
So we've made it to Once station. Here we're going to transfer to the Sarmiento line, also a suburban rail line, but very different. Broad gauge, electric, frequent service. Now those of you who speak Spanish might think, Once, doesn't that mean 11? Which 11 is this station named after? It's actually September 11th, but not that one.
No, Once station was named after September 11th, 1852, when Buenos Aires launched a revolution against the rest of Argentina. The station opened in 1882, and the current building was designed by a Dutch architect. Very nice. In 2012, it was the site of a terrible accident where 51 people lost their lives. The vast majority of train service here is the Sarmiento Suburban line, like this train we're about to board right now. But 3 days a week there is a long-distance train that runs all the way to Bragado. Anyway, about the Sarmiento line. Like the Belgrano Sur we rode earlier, the Sarmiento line is operated by Trenes Argentinos, using Chinese-built trains. But that's where the similarities end. Sarmiento line trains are electric, getting their power from a third rail. And they run on broad gauge, tracks that are 1676 millimeters or 5 foot 6 inches wide. That is wider than most of the tracks you'll find around the world. It's the same width as the Indian Railways or BART in California. The Sarmiento line is the second busiest out of all the lines in Buenos Aires, with 53 million riders a year. It uses parts of the larger Domingo Sarmiento Railway, named after the president of Argentina from 1868 to 1874.
There's guys just selling hot dogs on board.
Interesting fact, President Sarmiento died on September 11th, 1888. So some people think that Once station is named after that. Similar to the last line we rode, this line has gone back and forth between nationalization and privatization, though it's been operated by Trenes Argentinos since 2012 after the fatal crash. These tracks we are running on are the oldest in all of Argentina. In 1857, the Buenos Aires Western Railway began service as the first line in Argentina. In 1887, the British gained control of the railway and they extended it westward. The goal was to reach Chile, but they never made it that far. Much like the Belgrano Sur Line we rode earlier, the 2010s were a time of modernization for the Sarmiento line. These electric multiple units we are on were built by Chinese company CSR and delivered in 2014. At the same time, they refurbished the stations and added communications-based train control to the line. Today, there is electric service from Once to Moreno, between Moreno and Mercedes, as well as from Merlo to Lobos. There is a less frequent diesel service that passengers can connect to. This is funny, the font size that says Buenos is almost as big as the station names, so for a second I thought that this station was literally called Toilets. No, Tom, that's just a sign pointing to the bathroom. Sorry, I just got off a long flight. One thing I noticed was that the train got busier the farther we traveled from the city center. Going in this direction though, there were still plenty of seats left. Occasionally, someone would walk through the train selling goods. I saw someone sell socks, chocolates, and painter's tape. I hope they didn't have any plans to sell stuff on the trains back into the city though. When I rode back after filming this video, the inbound train was so crowded we were packed like sardines. Once again, this train does not travel at an impressively fast speed at all. These tracks are supposedly rated for 80 kilometers per hour, but we barely ever reached that. Nevertheless, after about 40 minutes, we reached the humorously named station that I decided would be my final destination for the day.
So yeah, I'm at Morón, and I've been talking to people. Everybody misses you. They're wondering when their mayor is coming back. I'm just kidding. Morón is a cool town in the suburbs of Buenos Aires. It's got a cool aviation museum, and that was a great ride. I think nothing will top somebody selling hot dogs on a train. I just thought that was hilarious. So the Sarmiento line, quite different in some ways, you know, very big trains to carry a lot of people. It's electric, so that's a huge difference. Also travels a little bit slow, and definitely that quietness on the Belgrano Sur. I did not notice that on the Sarmiento as much. A lot of people with their devices playing audio. The scratch windows were unfortunate, but I do have to say, what a great way to see parts of the city and the region that you normally wouldn't. So this was probably not your typical tourist itinerary for a first morning in Buenos Aires. I recommend going to see the city. That's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna have videos on the subte, on the trams, maybe even on the buses. They're all coming your way. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to Trains Are Awesome. We'll see you next time.